This is the iPhone 14 Pro and this is Dynamic Island. So the thing that everybody's talking about with the iPhone 14 Pro is the Dynamic Island. It's probably the biggest feature of this phone, and to be honest, it's underwhelming and overhyped. Apple is painting a very, very pretty picture of all of the possibilities of Dynamic Island, but they're not actually taking advantage of many of them. It's cool when it works. When you're listening to music, when you've got timers going on in the background, all that good stuff, it does work and it works just as advertised. But there's so much potential, so many things that the Dynamic Island could do that it doesn't. Now, of course, Apple can tweak this in time in software, but the Dynamic Island in its current state doesn't do much most of the time. It's just sitting there and it's actually annoying. But if I were to describe the Dynamic Island in just 3 words, it's a hard pill to swallow. So the iPhone 14 Pro finally has an upgrade in camera. In terms of megapixels, we've had the same 12 megapixel camera since the iPhone 6s, and we finally get a main sensor that can shoot at 48 megapixels. The catch? Well, it's actually binning to 12 megapixels, which is still really good, and you have features like ProRAW, which enable you to shoot at its full 48 megapixel capacity. It does great in low light because it also has a wider aperture. We also have a brand new ultra wide sensor, which is 12 megapixels, but it's better with low light. And to be honest, the results that this camera brings is outstanding. We also have ProRAW, as I briefly mentioned before, which allows you to collect more information with your photos to be able to edit them and make them look a lot better. Another thing that I did notice that not many people are actually talking about is the digital zoom is also improved. You can zoom into 15x and it won't look like crap. The front-facing camera has also gotten an upgrade. We finally have autofocus, which is great. So if you take a lot of videos or selfies with your iPhone, you now have more flexibility because you finally have things like autofocus. We also finally get 4K cinematic mode on the iPhone 14 Pro, and it looks sick. No idea why Apple hasn't introduced this before, but now you can take that Hollywood cinema camera vibe look to the next level with 4K at 30 frames a second and 24 frames a second in cinematic mode. Another new feature we have is what Apple calls action mode. Now, this feature has been on Android for years, but of course, no one cares. Action mode essentially turns your phone's camera into a stabilized gimbal camera, if that makes any sense. So now when you're taking video with action mode, you could be running around doing a bunch of weird, really cool stuff, and your phone could be shaking and it will still look pretty smooth. From the footage that I have taken, it doesn't look that great, especially in low light. And there also is the downside that it's shooting at 2.7K instead of 4K. But if you really don't want to use a gimbal, it's an option. So battery life is actually quite disappointing on the iPhone 14 Pro. I bought this thing expecting the battery life to be amazing, just like the iPhone 13 Pro was, but it actually barely gets me through the day, which is quite an inconvenience, and considering how much this phone costs, it's not great. Now, fortunately, there have been rumors that iOS 16.1 is gonna fix this, but I guess only time will tell. The display on the iPhone 14 Pro has gotten an upgrade. We have a brand new always-on display, which yes, it eats up your battery life quite a little bit, but it honestly looks amazing. The fact that it dims the wallpaper and shows you the time and everything. The display also gets up to 2000 nits of brightness, which in simple terms means the display gets brighter, and if you're looking at content in the sun, you'll actually be able to see your screen for once, which is a very nice upgrade. So the performance and the software are what I wanted to mention next. Now, performance-wise, it's amazing. The A16 Bionic, just chews through literally anything I throw at it. The 6 gigs of RAM is also a nice improvement, and it is noticeable, but iOS 16 has not been the best. And this isn't just exclusive to the iPhone 14 Pro, but there's been a lot of people that have been having issues with iOS 16 in terms of battery life, a lot of bugs, a lot of glitches, a lot of crashes. This may all change. The software experience may get better over time, but as of right now, it ain't it, chief. It's an iPhone. That's pretty much everything that this is. Yes, it has fantastic camera upgrades. Yes, it has a great display. Yes, it has great performance, but the fact that the Dynamic Island isn't really as dynamic as Apple is putting it up to be, and the battery life being disappointing, and even the price in the UK, the iPhone 14 Pro starts at £150 more than the 13 Pro did last year. Of course, if you're in the US, this is a different story, but you don't get a SIM card tray, so screw you. So I'd say unless you really need the camera improvements that this phone brings, or even the display improvements, or you really need Dynamic Island, which you do not, trust me, then save your money, get yourself a 13 Pro, or just keep the phone you already have, because it's probably good enough. Now, you may be thinking, Benji, Are you gonna send it back or are you keeping it? Well, I'm an Apple fanboy, so what do you expect? So make sure to subscribe because I've got plenty more iPhone 14 Pro content for you guys coming up very soon. But for now, thanks so much for watching. I'm Benji from Benelli Tech, and I'll see you guys in the very next video.